Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out, episode 133. Hope you're having a great weekend so far. And welcome to the new affiliates that are now taking the Tech It Out show, stations like WBGZ AM in St. Louis, Missouri, as well as WGGH AM and its sister station, FM Translator 98.5 in the market, Marion, Illinois, and WZGM 1350 AM in Asheville, North Carolina. Welcome to all of you. Thrilled to have you along. And I hope you enjoy this weekly show that doesn't just celebrate technology, but my goal is also to demystify it. Or, as the announcer says, I aim to break down geek speak into street speak. We're going to learn about the new Samsung smartphones unveiled last week, including one that has an unprecedented camera that can take up to 108 megapixel photos. Wow. And with 100 times zoom. We'll talk with Daniel Bader from Android Central about those new phones. Also on the show, something for pet owners. It's a special collar for dogs called SpotOn. It lets you create a virtual fence around your property, and if your dog steps out of it, you're immediately notified on an app. And you can also have the option to track your dog in order to retrieve it. But first, we're going to officially start this week's show with a chat about the popular travel site and app Kayak. All right, let's kick things off with this week's Tech It Out. By now, you've likely heard of or even used Kayak. It's billed as the world's leading travel search engine, where you can find the best deals on flights, hotels, and rental cars. This site and app searches hundreds of agency and company sites to help find you the lowest prices. And the company is now introducing a new feature for those traveling to more than one destination. Joining us on the line to talk all about it is Matthias Keller. He's the chief scientist at Kayak. Thanks for your time, Matthias.
Great to be here, Mark.
Before we talk about Trip Builder, this new feature integrated into Kayak, please give us a 101, if you will, a primer on what Kayak is all about.
Yes, absolutely. So, as you heard already in the trailer, Kayak is a meta search engine for flights, hotels, and cars. It started in 2005 from the United States. And until today, it has dramatically grown. We are now processing about 6 billion travel search queries every year across our many brands all around the globe. When we started Kayak, it was one of the first, if not the first, meta search for flights. We actually, I would say, created that category. And we kept that angle of continuing to innovate with technology, be it like introducing the hacker fairs, be it introducing, like just most recently, airline type filter, be it introducing many other features like Explore and Trips, and always trying to focus on helping our travelers to find their best destination, to find the best way to get there, to find the best way to stay there, and have all kinds of tools and insights and smart things helping them getting there, being there, managing it, and focusing on traveling instead of booking traveling.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Now, Matthias, because this show is meant to demystify technology as much as I aim to help celebrate it, can you explain what a meta search engine means opposed to a regular search query that you may type into Google, for example?
Yeah, so let me rather start how Kayak started, and then it becomes more clear. So before there was Kayak, if you wanted to travel, you would either go to an airline or you would go to what is called an OTA, an online travel agency. And these were all different sites, and you had to go there, you had to basically rerun the same query over and over to get like the whole picture of what airlines go there, what's the price, what are the price differences. And when we came in, we basically allowed you to get all that information with one search, because that's what we do. We are searching airlines, we are searching online travel agencies. We are now also searching all kinds of things, let's say like train operators, hotels, car rental companies. But the idea of meta search is that it kind of like does the many searches for you while you only run one search. And now, as you say, Google started as a general purpose search engine, and it's now also more and more coming into travel, and as such, it's maybe also meta search. But originally, really look at it from like taking away all that work of going to these hundreds of sites yourself, and have us do all the heavy lifting and have us help you to compare and to get like this transparent view on how things are and what your options are.
Thank you for the clarification. It's no secret there are many other similar, let's say, travel-related meta search engines out there. What would you say is the key differentiator between Kayak and some of the other travel brands? What's your secret sauce, if you will?
Yeah, I think there are multiple components. So on the one hand, there is by now, of course, scale that really helps us to get you the best content, to get you all the things in one place. But as I also said initially, Kayak has always been very driven by technology and being done by travelers focusing on solving users' problems. And simple examples are like, let's say you wouldn't know yet where you want to go. So you could use our tool, which is called Explore, which is this map where you basically just say like, I want to go somewhere for $600 and maybe it should be warm. And we are going to make you all kind of suggestions of real prices from your current location and where you could go. We introduced another great way. We introduced a lot of technology that helps you to also save actual money, which is what we call the hacker fares, which is this innovation where basically instead of taking a round trip ticket with one airline, we find you two separate one-way tickets that are overall cheaper than the round trip together, saving you actual money. Many more technological innovations up to like helping you to scan your bag using your phone's camera.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So, Matthias, now please tell us about this new trip builder tool. What's it about?
Yeah, so the trip builder in a nutshell, it really tries to help you to find the cheapest ways for really exciting trips that span multiple destinations that may be a distance apart that you don't just do with an hour of a train ride. So let's say like a simple example, you want to really experience Europe and you have 2 weeks of the time and you always heard that Paris, Barcelona, and Munich are great places, and now you want to visit all these. What you do without the trip builder is that as much as we have what is called a multi-city search, where you could basically say like, okay, I start in Toronto, I first go to Munich, then I go to Paris, and then I go to Barcelona. You already here have to give the order, and you also have to basically find the best dates, which becomes really complicated when you have all this flexibility of like, how about go to Barcelona before Munich or the other way around? And this is exactly what Trip Builder is going to solve for you. You start with saying like, when you want to travel, you say where you like what's on your list, the things that you want to see, and then this product does all the work for you, finding suggestions how you can do that trip on a cheap airfare, seeing all the things you want to see, but really taking all these many combinations away from you and just presenting you with actual bookable results that may have different orders, and it's made like, sometimes you're 3 days here and 4 days there, but overall giving you the exact trip you wanted without having to run these hundreds or thousands of searches, or potentially just paying more than you should pay.
We're chatting with Matthias Keller, Chief Scientist at Kayak. We're learning about a new feature called the Trip Builder tool, designed for those who are traveling to multiple cities. So it can calculate the cheapest routes between these places to help give you the biggest savings. I understand, Matthias, that Kayak is both an app and a website. Does that Trip Builder tool work across all platforms?
So we launched the Trip Builder just last week, and it's right now starting on desktop. We are right now looking how the traction is. We are going to optimize it, and then depending on how we see how it is, we may also later launch it on mobile. It has to be set so that we also know that if you're booking such a trip, you're probably better off. Usually these people, the demand is higher on the big screen, right? Because as much as we take all that load from you, there's still a lot of information to process. And that's why we think that desktop is the right place to start.
I think that's fair. As much as I love my smartphone and use it for several applications, when it comes to booking flights or hotels or rental cars, I do find myself going towards a laptop or a desktop for that extra real estate to really compare things like prices, or, to really look at the itinerary clearly before I book it. So that's just me. But anecdotally, I would agree that a desktop may be more conducive for things like that. But the app is full featured as well, especially if you're on the go already on your trip. You can refer to the Kayak app for information, right?
Yeah, and where the app particularly shines is are like I already mentioned, scanning your bags, which is like the great thing, kind of like on the very last moment when you go. But where the app particularly shines is our feature, which is called Kayak Trips. That is basically all your information you need to travel inside your phone. So while you're booking your travel, you can either book it directly on Kayak, or if you don't book it on Kayak, you can just forward us your receipt, and we are going to put this all together for you in one nice itinerary. We're going to tell you what's the next action. We're going to give you live status, like let's say there's of course a flight inside your trip, so we're going to send you notification that there's a new gate or that there's maybe a delay. And we're trying to really make that as interactive and real time as possible.
All right, so the website is simply kayak.com, Kayak.com. Then the app, of course, is a free download from the App Store for iPhone and iPad or the Google Play Store for Android devices, correct?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, Matthias, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for teaching us about the Trip Builder tool and giving us the skinny on Kayak overall. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
This show, Tech It Out, is powered by ASUS, a company that creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life, including its line of award-winning laptops, desktops, monitors, smartphones, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. When we return on Tech It Out, we're going to catch up with Daniel Bader from Android Central. We'll be right back.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. Samsung has had a big week with several new phones unveiled for North America, including its new Galaxy S20 series of flagship devices, as well as a flip phone, if you remember those, but with a twist. Joining us on the line to break it all down is Daniel Bader, managing editor at Android Central, and an all-around nice guy. Welcome back to the show, Dan. Good to chat with you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. Now, before we talk about Samsung's devices, please tell us a bit about Android Central.
Yeah, Android Central is the place that you want to go if you're looking to buy a new Android phone, and we help you figure out which one to buy if you have a certain budget, or if you're just learning how to fix some problems with your existing phone. We have all the guides and tricks and tips for you to get the most out of your Android device. So that is what we do every day, and I love it.
All right, so it's a website, androidcentral.com, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right.
And a podcast as well, if you're interested in hearing about our hot takes with your ears.
Ah, I like that. So our listeners should just look for Android Central at their favorite podcast platform.
Exactly. Okay. Anywhere you go.
All right. So please give us the skinny on the new Samsung Galaxy S20 series of devices. I guess people were expecting this to be called the S11, but it looks like they had a different naming convention this time around.
Yeah, Samsung likes to align their marketing with particular milestones in the company's history, and this S20 launch corresponds with obviously the year 2020, but it's also the company's biggest change to its phones in about 4 years. So when you look at the overall lineup, the phones are obviously very big, and they're expensive and improved over the Galaxy S10 series, but really it comes down to major camera updates on all three of these devices. And as a result, Samsung felt like it was a big enough deal to just go from 10 to 20, especially since there's also a major cellular milestone in the sense that all of these devices support 5G. So just a lot of really big improvements, and that's why they moved to 20.
Okay, got it, Daniel. So the two biggest features are they're all 5G ready, so to support the latest in cellular speeds and other features, the latest infrastructure that is still rolling out, though, in much of the country, and the camera. So I think the camera seems to be the biggest story, or at least the one that's garnering the most press surrounding the launch of the S20 series. So there's 3 devices, the S20, the S20 Plus, and the S20 Ultra. Tell us about the camera tech in these new devices.
Right. So Samsung has been a little bit behind in terms of overall camera quality for a few years now. They've been surpassed by Apple and by Google, and to some extent even by Huawei. And part of what these other companies have done is they have taken one of 2 approaches. In the case of Huawei, they've put really big sensors in their phones. You know, the sensors are the things that capture all the light. And as a result, you can get better photos in different lighting conditions. Apple and Google have taken another approach. They've used something called computational photography, where if you take a photo after the fact, the processing will take a look at the different aspects of the photo and try to make them as attractive as possible. Now, Samsung has decided this year to go with both routes. So they've increased the size of the sensors considerably across all 3 phones, and they're using new computational photography techniques to make the photos look better in post-production, hoping to jump or leap over the quality of all of those other 3 manufacturers.
2 things stand out with the largest device, the 6.9-inch Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. Kind of just rolls off the tongue. And one is the fact that it can take up to 108 megapixel still images, up to 100 times zoom, which is a hybrid of optical and digital zoom. How significant are these features?
So if you want to do anything with your phone's camera, you can do it with this phone. As you mentioned, it can take telephoto captures up to 100 times. And that comes from a combination of an optical lens that gives you a lossless 4 times zoom. So if you think about your standard lens in a phone, it's pretty wide. You can capture a lot of the surroundings. This does 4 times that focal length. And then with computational photography, and with the fact that there are just so many megapixels capturing this image information, it can go all the way to 100 times. Now, I don't expect those 100 times photos to be really high quality,
right.
But if you're really trying to eke out a little bit of, if you're trying to get to the top, see what's at the top of the Eiffel Tower and you're standing on the ground, these are the kinds of photos that you may want to take. But what's really interesting about the camera here is that the sensor inside the phone is the biggest camera sensor we've ever seen in a smartphone. And that is a significant leap because Samsung itself is actually building this camera sensor. It's not sourcing it from anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So it's the only company, the only phone in the world right now that's using this camera sensor, and 108 megapixels gets you a lot of detail when you want it. But if you're in a low light situation and you just want to get as much detail from the shadows as possible, it could do something called pixel binning, which combines 9 pixels together and gets you a really, really high quality 12 megapixel shot when you want it as well. So it's very versatile.
We're going to continue chatting with Daniel Bader from Android Central all about the new Samsung devices when we return on Tech It Out. And if you want to see what the device looks like and some of the photos that it's capable of taking, you can simply Google Samsung Galaxy S20, or the S20 Ultra is the highest end model that we've been chatting about. So stay tuned. A lot more Tech It Out coming up after this short break when we continue chatting with Daniel Bader, and we're going to learn also about the Samsung Z Flip, the next generation flip phone. We'll be right back.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
You're listening to Tech It Out on the Radio America Network. You're either listening to it on your local radio station or in podcast form. Either way, we're thrilled to have you along. Apologies for the cold this week. 'Tis the season, and doing my best. The show must go on, as they say. Before we continue chatting with Daniel Bader from Android Central, a shout out to the title sponsor on this program, Asus. Asus creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life, including its line of award-winning laptops laptops, desktops, monitors, smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, and much more. For those in search of incredible, visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. And while you're there, also check out their Republic of Gamers, or ROG, line of gear as well. All right, let's get back to the program. We're chatting with Daniel Bader, managing editor at Android Central. We're talking about the new Samsung announcements, specifically the S20 series of smartphones. We'll talk about their new flip phone in a moment. But just to wrap up, so we talked about the still images being able to capture up to 108 megapixels, or just a lot of detail, up to 100 times zoom, combining both the AI or digital zoom with the optical zoom capabilities, but also 8K video recording. So I think Samsung is one of the few TV makers that can support 8K resolution, which is 4 times the resolution of a 4K TV. Not twice as good, but 4 times the resolution. But now their phones can capture 8K video. Is that right?
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's the first company that will allow 8K capture up to 24 frames per second. And you may not think that you want 8K, but as you mentioned, because it's 4 times the resolution of 4K, when you take that video and you want to edit it, you can crop it really, really closely without losing any details. So it's for people who want to use this 8K footage in post-production and not lose any detail if you're really zooming in. And I think eventually 8K TVs are going to be popular enough that this will be a useful feature.
Thankfully, there's expandable memory on these devices because you're going to need it for 8K, not to mention a really big battery. So that's pretty cool. All right, price. Before we move on to the Samsung Z Flip, tell us about the price of the S20 series. I think that also got a lot of press this week.
Oh, yeah, Mark, this is a very, very expensive lineup. So the baseline Galaxy S20 is $1,000 or 1,320 Canadian dollars. So that is the cheapest Galaxy S20 variant that you can buy. The middle of the range, the Galaxy S20 Plus, $1,200 or 1,580 Canadian dollars. So you see where that exchange rate is not working in Canadians' favor.
Sure.
And finally, the Galaxy S20 Ultra, $1,400 or an eye-watering 1,850 Canadian dollars. So, and you can add on to that if you want more storage. So these are not cheap phones, and you really have to know that you want to spend that money to get all of those features.
So for early adopters with deep pockets, it makes sense. Or for those who really want it, they can often get a deal with their carrier, 24 months, a contracted kind of plan as well. So be on the lookout for if that matters to you. You end up paying more in the end, but if that matters to you, that those options will likely be available. And when will they come out? I think it's March 6th.
March 6th, Friday, March 6th. So just a few weeks from now.
Okay. All right. Now let's end off on the Samsung Z Flip, or to our friends in the north, the Samsung Z Flip phone. Looks pretty neat. Flip phone obviously is reminiscent of what we used in the early 2000s, but this has a bit of a twist to it, as I hinted at off the top.
Yeah, this is a really interesting product. It's Samsung's second foldable phone, and it's got a traditional clamshell form factor. So if you remember those flip phones, the Motorola Razr from back in the day, this is akin to that, but it folds out to be a regular-sized smartphone. And what's amazing about this Galaxy Z Flip is that it uses foldable glass for the first time. So when you use the phone, it won't scratch or dent the way that some of the older foldable phones will, like the original Galaxy Fold that was released last year. This is a really innovative device, something that Samsung has been working on for many, many years. And it seems like of all of the foldable phones that have been released so far, this is really the most interesting and the one that I think will last the longest in terms of durability.
Yeah, it's been compared to the just launched Motorola Remix, if you will, the new foldable phone as well, which is plastic, but still a foldable screen. But Samsung's is glass, and I think universally we're seeing a lot more people giving thumbs up for the Samsung device over the Motorola. Is that fair?
Absolutely, yeah. There's just a lot more going on here, and Samsung has done more to take advantage of the fact that when you fold the phone at 90 degrees, it can actually sit flat on a table. So if you're looking to take a selfie with a bunch of people, you can place this down on a flat surface, fold it 90 degrees so that the half of the screen faces you and your group, and then just press that shutter button, and you can see what is going on. That's a really nice way to avoid bringing a tripod with you. And it brings another piece of functionality to something that you may just dismiss as a gimmick because, oh, well, this phone folds in half, but what can it actually do? Well, there are real advantages to this form factor.
So the Motorola Razr, it has two form factors, closed and open. But with the Samsung Flip, the Z Flip, it can actually go, as you said, half the screen is 90 degrees and it's vertically aligned, and the other half can be flat on a surface like a table or a desk.
Yeah, and there's a little when the phone is completely closed, there's this little 1-inch viewfinder at the front of the phone that you can use to take selfies because the camera's facing you. So Samsung's thought about a lot of these things, and it's a really considered design. It's not just building a fancy piece of tech for tech's sake. I think there are really going to be people excited about using these additional features.
Okay, and how much will the Samsung Z Flip phone cost?
It's going to be $1,380 US, and I'm not sure what it's going to cost up in Canada.
1,800, yeah, 1,800 and change.
Okay, so 1,800, so around the same as the highest Galaxy S20 Ultra, but this is definitely more for people who value design over functionality.
All right, Daniel. And then finally, where can we learn more about your work and read your articles at Android Central? Is that androidcentral.com?
That's it. You can find me at JourneyDan on Twitter if you want to hear my personal takes, but all of my coworkers' excellent writing is at androidcentral.com.
All right. Daniel, thanks again for your time. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thanks, Mark.
As I said during the last block, just before I introduced Daniel, he really is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the industry. Always super cool and down to earth, very chill. And I always enjoy catching up with him at various events. So be sure to check out his stuff at androidcentral.com. And you can follow him on Twitter, as he said, at JourneyDan. When we return, we're going to learn about SpotOn, a virtual fence for your dog.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Check it out. Hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. We love our pets, and like many pet owners, there's a fear about them wandering off. Those signs that kids or parents put up in neighborhoods for lost dogs and cats, that can be heartbreaking, right? Well, maybe technology can play a role here. Joining us on the line to talk about SpotOn, we've got Sung Vivathana with us. He's the VP of Engineering at SpotOn. Welcome to the show, Sung.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. The company and the solution are both called SpotOn, one word, capital S, capital O. Tell us what it's all about.
Sure. So the SpotOn Virtual Smart Fence, it's the first and only dog containment and tracking system that lets you take your dog and the SpotOn system wherever you go. With our patented technology, you can easily program a containment area simply by just holding the collar with the antenna up in your hand and walk the perimeter that you intend to keep your dog contained. Now, you can do this at home. You can do it at the beach. You can do it camping. You can do it at a friend's house. The entire system is in a collar, and you have a smartphone app that works with the collar. The great thing about it is once your dog's trained at home, now it works pretty much anywhere you want to go.
All right, so it's an invisible fence or a virtual fence that you first set up. You walk around the perimeter of, say, your property, or as you said, you could be at the beach and you've got like a little contained area that you want to keep your pet in, and then you do that first, and it sort of programs the collar, and then if the dog wanders past that when he or she is wearing that collar, what happens on the app?
So, if I may back up a little bit, Mark. So, yes, that is correct. You can walk the perimeter anywhere you choose. And it's the same technology, the methodology that's kept pets in containment for 40 years now. So as your dog approaches the boundary, there's a series of audible tones that occur as your dog approaches the boundary that you define. And if your dog does approach that boundary and passes it, there's an optional static correction that occurs. Now, if your dog continues to go beyond that because your dog decided to chase after something, what happens is you get a notification on your phone, and you could just easily tap it. And what it does for you is it puts your dog on a map, and it starts tracking your dog right away, so you know exactly where your dog is, and allows you to get to your dog as fast as you can. If you're in the woods, there's what's called a compass mode. If you're far away, say if you're at your office and your dog's at home, you could have turn-by-turn driving directions. And like I said, it's a nice visual map that shows exactly where your dog is on the map.
So does it use GPS technology? So it's talking to satellites above the earth to identify its location?
That's correct. Actually, unlike other tracking devices out there for pets, we use not just GPS. We use what's called a series of global navigation satellite systems, and it includes GPS. It also includes GLONASS, and it includes Galileo. So it's tied to 3 satellite constellations, which means you have the best visibility and best access to satellites, which equates to the best accuracy.
Now, what if the dog is inside? He or she is in a shed, or somebody takes them into the home. That usually means satellite reception won't work. Is there a cellular backup, or what happens? Does it show you the last known location of that pet?
Yep. So that's true. So we have patented algorithms that is able to determine if your dog's inside or outside. With these 3 satellite systems, you actually do not lose satellite signal. It just becomes a little bit more degraded. It's unlike your TV satellite systems where heavy cloud cover, rainstorms, snowstorms basically block out the signal and you don't get to watch TV. These signals are unlike that. They penetrate buildings, they penetrate homes, and you could actually still receive the signal. But we put in patented algorithms to be able to determine if your dog is inside. And if your dog is inside, we post where the point of entrance of that structure.
Got it. Speaking of patents, what does separate SpotOn from other virtual fence collars and other similar technologies that I've written about in the past over the years?
Sure. So the traditional system, you need to have somebody come to your house and bury wires in the ground. And for them to do that, they have to dig a trench in your yard and lay the foundation, and they train your dog to that system. Now, that's very limited because if you have a large size property, now the investment for those types of systems go up based on the acreage that you want to cover. This also with those is that if they break, if you live in the Northeast or some other part of the country where the seasons change, those wires tend to break, and you don't know that they're broken until your dog escapes. So the main difference between us and some of the traditional systems is that it's all wireless. So once you set up the map, and you could also save up to 10 different locations, by the way, not just your house. You could save up to 9 other properties or locations wherever you frequent the most. So once you save it, it's stored in the collar. And like I said, as your dog approaches the boundary, it gets alert tones. And if your dog does breach the boundary, you get that actual feedback saying your dog just left containment. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about our system is if your dog does decide to come back home, the collar knows which direction your dog is going. So it turns off any safety, any correction system mechanism, and allows your dog to come back home safely.
When we continue on Tech It Out, we'll continue learning about SpotOn, a virtual fence for your dog. It's a special collar that works with an app that lets you set up a boundary, a geo-fenced location, whether it's at home or even a temporary one if you're, say, at a beach or something. And if the dog crosses over, it alerts you on the app. We're going to learn about pricing as well, because from what I understand, the cost to locate your dog, like see him or her on a map and track them down and all that, that's a separate fee from what I understand. But I'll let our guests explain when we return on Tech It Out.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
We're chatting about SpotOn, a virtual fence solution for dogs. We've got Sung Vivathana on the line. He's the Vice President of Engineering at SpotOn. Because this is radio, Sung, what does the collar look like? Because it has a GPS chip in it, is it larger than a regular dog collar?
Yes, it is, Mark. Part of what is unique about us is that it's all self-contained in the collar. There's no other hardware required. There's no base station. There's no buried wires. It's all self-contained. So with that said, it is a little bit larger because you have the GPS receiver, you have the battery, and we actually have an onboard display that allows you to manipulate the collar, the collar itself without needing anything else. So you can navigate a menu right on the screen. So with that, the collar is a little bit bigger, and it's really meant for dogs that are roughly 25 pounds and up. Normally, those are the type of dogs that people tend to leave outside by themselves and allow them to roam. And the best part about this product is, most of our customers have decent sized properties, if not, large sized properties. So they create nice, big 5+, 10+ acre areas for their dogs to just run around and roam. And we all know that, dogs are curious by nature. And if they're allowed to go out there and be curious and sniff around and run around and get exercise, they are much healthier, they're much happier, and that makes the human-animal bond that much better. And that's what SpotOn brings to the table.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, Sung, how much does the SpotOn product cost? And is it a subscription? Because it does have the ability to track the dog once it leaves the containment area. And where can we learn more about it? Is there a website you could recommend?
Sure. So it does retail on our website. Direct online is how we're selling it, and it's $1,495. And that's a one-time purchase price. The tracking feature and subscription is optional, which means the containment feature on its own is just that one-time price that you pay. And the containment works without a subscription, which means you could create the boundary or the containment at your home and at 9 other locations. If you choose to invoke the tracking feature, you can go onto our website and activate the tracking, and you get 2 months free, and it's $6.95 thereafter. And you could choose, depending on your use case, you could choose to keep it or you could choose to cancel it without no additional fee. So it's a very, very flexible system, very customizable. Much like the system itself in terms of how you create containment. We want people to pick and choose what they really need.
Pretty hefty price tag, if you don't mind me saying.
Of course.
Is there something about the technology that makes it that expensive?
Sure. So if you consider a traditional physical fence, and depending on the type of neighborhood you live in, you may or may not be allowed to build a fence. So if you build a fence of a half acre, property acre, you're talking several thousands of dollars depending on the quality. If you're talking about the traditional invisible fences or electric fences that you bury in the ground, depending on the property size that you have, probably between a half acre to 3/4 of an acre to start, you're talking roughly a starting point of $1,500. So that's how we the modeling of our pricing started, is we wanted to target that sort of demographic of, all right, who's what type of customers are willing, are able to invest in their pet. And we feel that today pets are viewed as part of the family, and people are very willing to invest in them. So that's how we valued our system, is that, there's no need for buried wires. There's no need for a physical fence. We provide not only the containment, but the tracking and the notification feature along with it. So that's how we decided on that price point. Now, we are a startup and we are a new company, and we are trying to market to more of a larger population. So as we learn based on our current customer base and as technology improves, yes, we'll definitely target more of a larger market out there. But that's how we arrived at that price point.
Okay. Thank you, Sung. And then the website again to learn more about SpotOn or order it directly from you?
Sure. The website is www.spotoncollar.com. And there's plenty of information on there. And we also have a direct customer support line that you could call us and ask any questions you'd like. And our customer support team is more than happy to help you out.
All right. SpotOn Collar. .com. Thank you, Sung Vivathana, VP of Engineering at the company. I appreciate your time. Good luck with the launch of the product.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this week's program. Apologies for the very congested voice, but I hope you enjoyed Tech It Out this week, which is powered by ASUS for those in search of incredible. ASUS creates technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. You can visit asus.com/US/radio to learn more about their awesome products. That's ASUS.com. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone. Catch up with you next time on Tech It Out. Bye-bye for now.